Hello, everybody. I'm Secular Spirit, and welcome to my fourth annual Ramadan special call in for ex Muslims. Thank you to anyone tuning in right now. I see some familiar faces already. And oh, hold on, we've got some sound issues over here. All right, we're all set. Okay, so yes, this is the fourth annual call-in I've done, and this is basically a forum that's open for all ex-Muslims to call in and talk about their experiences, their challenges during Ramadan. For those of you who might not be familiar with it, Ramadan is the holy month that is observed by most Muslims. You're supposed to fast all day, and you break your fast at night during the iftar dinner. And it's typically a time of community and closeness and a time where you're supposed to reflect on yourself and try to be a better Muslim, a better person. And families tend to spend a lot of time close to each other during Ramadan. There's also a priority on family and community. And so when you're an ex-Muslim and you've left a religion, it becomes much harder to either hide that you're no longer a practicing Muslim when you're spending so much time around your Muslim relatives, friends, family. And it's a time that can lead to a lot of awkwardness when your family does know you're no longer practicing and you don't believe in it, because this is the time when you're supposed to be the best kind of Muslim that you can be. So a lot of ex-Muslims are completely closeted, or they're living separately from their family, hiding the truth perhaps or not. But it becomes a tough time because then you miss that community, you miss being with your family, you miss the celebrations of Ramadan, the dinners, the iftars together. So yeah, I mean, for me as well, I would say it's also a time when I was still a practicing Muslim that I felt a lot of guilt over all of the things that I wasn't doing properly as a Muslim, a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment about my growing sexuality when I was a teenager going through puberty. And so a lot of those things are issues for ex-Muslims as well. So what I hope to do here today is to just listen to the stories of ex-Muslims as an opportunity for other ex-Muslims to learn that they're not alone. And that's the main thing I want everyone to take away from this live stream. All the ex-Muslims watching, you are not alone. A lot of ex-Muslims around the world are going through the same experiences that you are going through, or they went through them in the past and they came through them. And I also want this to be an opportunity for people who are non-Muslims to learn what it is to be an ex-Muslim and struggle with leaving Islam. And one of the worst struggles is during Ramadan. And last but not least, I hope that some Muslims come upon this and start watching and learn a little bit more about why someone would leave Islam, and that ex-Muslims are not monsters, they're not heathens, we haven't been seduced by the devil. And yeah, we're just human beings in the end of the day. So with that out of the way, I wanted to just mention the poll question. For everyone tuning in live, you can check it out in the live chat. So the question is Ramadan a positive force in the world? Yes or no? So I'll check in on how that poll is doing in a little bit. And yeah, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I do a lot of content talking about ex-Muslims, but also about organized religion and how to live life without needing a belief in God, how to lead a meaningful life without religion, hence the name Secular Spirit. Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. Gerwalk is here. Good to see you, Gerwalk. I'm going to post the invite link for people who want to call in the live chat, and I'll try pinning that as well. We do have a guest already waiting, but for anyone who wants to call in, the invite link for StreamYard that we're using to call in is in the live chat pinned to the top. So you can click there, and then I have a moderator who's going to just ask a few questions for you, just to help me out with knowing a little bit about your story. and then hopefully we'll have time to talk to everyone. So with that out of the way as well, I'm gonna just check in to see if our first caller is ready. So our first caller is Bread. So I'm gonna just check and see if Bread is ready to go. Okay, Bread is ready to go, and I'm gonna bring Bread on now.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Bread. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you are on and you are live. Everyone can hear you.
Awesome. How are you doing?
I am doing very, very well, enjoying the day off. And I live in Canada, and the weather's finally starting to warm up now. Spring is imminent, so looking forward to taking a walk in the sun afterwards.
I live in the US, so it's like we're also having that kind of seasonal transition, but it's like that weird period where it's like a week is really cold and then a week's really hot. So thankfully this week's hot.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. That's awesome. Yeah, and Brett. So we just for context, the two of us we know each other a little bit, but I don't really know your full story or what your experiences with Ramadan were or are right now. So yeah, I'm just very curious to know. You can talk about anything you want. If you want to talk about why you left Islam, or you just want to talk about what Ramadan is like for you now, feel free to talk about both if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. I guess for some context, I've been ex-Muslim for a little more than a year now. Um, and there are a lot of reasons as to why I left. I'd say primarily I kind of broke down the idea that a God has to exist. And then from there, kind of built myself back and was like, okay, well, if a God doesn't exist, then uh, yeah, I guess that's kind of why I left. But since it's the Ramadan stream, I guess I can talk a little bit about like what Ramadan has been for me. I'm also Pakistani, so like in my head, I always say Ramzan instead of Ramadan. So sorry in advance if I like mess that up a little bit.
No, no worries.
But yeah, I guess like as a kid, Ramadan was really fun and exciting. It was something that I saw my parents do, and so I also wanted to do it. And also, when I was a kid, Ramadan fell during the summer, so the fasts were pretty long because Maghrib was at around 8 p.m. So when I was in elementary school, I really, really wanted to fast, but my mom, she wouldn't let me fast the entire 12 hours. So she let me do complete half day fasts. So pretty much I would wake up for Sari just like my parents, and then I would break my fast right after Zohar. And later, when I was around 8 or 9, my mom she would let me do water fasts, so no food all day, but I could drink water throughout the day. Um, and there was kind of like fasting was kind of like a game to me as a kid. I wanted to see how long can I last, like can I make it to Mugger today? And fasting the whole day, it was definitely felt more like an achievement than a burden. Like I won some sort of game, I guess. And then also there were the rewards in Ramadan. Like if I got to stay up for Tarawih, that was like past my bedtime. My mom made really fancy dinners. And again, like all my aunts and uncles and my parents, like they were always really happy when I was able to do the full day fast. So I guess the struggle of hunger as a kid was really overshadowed by the novelty of Ramzan. And so I completed my first full Ramadan in high school. And surprisingly, it really wasn't that difficult because this is totally not healthy, but I didn't really eat during school already. So it was just like the hardest part were like the few hours from when I would get back from school to iftar. That's really where I would kind of struggle with the hunger. But then COVID hit when I was in high school, and then fasting became even easier because I was home all day. I was in an air conditioned house. There was no commuting. There were no difficult schedules. I literally just had to like sit at home and just wait for iftar to come. College was a very different story though. Ramadan became a lot harder. Walking from class to work to the library to my dorm, um, constantly needing energy. Fasting definitely became more of a physical struggle. And digestively, I felt sick most of the time after the first week of fasting because after not eating for the whole day, iftar definitely did consist of quite a bit of binge eating. Um, Also, this like very weird quirk when I was in college is like when I was on my cycle, I feel very weird like walking into the dining hall to eat because I wore a hijab. So it was very obvious that I was Muslim, and so I felt like I shouldn't be eating in public, even though I was exempt from it. And I didn't really have that problem in high school because, again, like I already didn't really eat at school. So yeah, that was another kind of strange quirk of college. But I guess in college, it wasn't really the hunger that got to me, even though that was really a bit of a challenge. What I think really broke me during Ramadan was the sleep schedule. That was definitely the hardest part. Um, because you're staying up late doing extra prayers, you're waking up early for Sari, you're trying to squeeze in extra sleep um, after Fajr. So I think on average, it's like after Tarawih and Isha, I would sleep for maybe like 2 to 3 hours after like doing my homework. Then I would wake up for Sari, and then I would get maybe another 1 to 2 hours after Fajr, and then I had to get up to go to class. And so that cycle definitely left me very exhausted. Um, and I guess like there were two main emotions that I experienced during Ramzan. The first one was definitely anger. So I have a bit of a history of disordered eating, and so fasting it brings back a lot of those feelings in ways that I don't really know how to control yet. So just like the feeling of restriction of not being permitted to eat when I want to, of like choosing not to eat and being forced into restriction is very triggering for me. Disordered eating, it's often about control for me at least. So it's about controlling when, how much, and what you eat because you maybe feel like you don't have control over other aspects of your life. And so Ramadan takes that control away from me. I have to fast whether my body and mind are okay with it or not. And that lack of autonomy combined with exhaustion and again the sleep, it just wasn't a very good combination emotionally. And then there was also the guilt because, like as you said in your intro, Ramzan, it isn't just about eating or drinking. You're supposed to be striving to be a better Muslim during Ramadan.
Exactly. Yeah.
hmm So you're fasting from food, but you're also fasting from bad habits. And so every year, Ramadan made me feel guilty because I knew that I was supposed to use that time to become a better Muslim. But I also had work and I had to go to school every day. So, like, spending hours reading the Quran, uh, was just not really feasible for me. And I already did all the prayers, but like staying up for Tarawih every night was also not something that I was really consistent with. And so I remember in my last Ramzan, I was like, oh, I'm just going to listen to Islamic lectures and podcasts when I'm walking to class. But even like listening to a podcast and like paying attention to it takes mental energy. And like school and work was already this huge stress factor and cognitive overload. So I also wasn't really consistent like that. So for me, at least, Ramadan every year came with these huge expectations. Like this year I'll read more Quran, I'll pray extra, I will go to Tarawih every night, I will dedicate myself fully. But usually by the end of it, I was left feeling like I wasn't trying enough. And I would often start resenting my, I guess, quote unquote, like worldly responsibilities like school and work because I felt like they had stolen the sacredness of the month for me. So yeah, I'd say like overall, sorry, that was like a very long answer
No,
to
no
your
worries.
question.
So it's like Ramadan felt like way more important than, the seemingly trivial things by comparison of going to school or, you know, uh, going to a job or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I guess like I always felt like in my head I always believe that like if something's really important to you, you will make time for it. And honestly, like Ramadan always came at like a very, very bad time for me every year. Like either I was going through exams or like there was something else going on in my life. And so yeah, like Islam was really important to me, but the fact that just coincidentally by circumstances every year I wasn't really able to place the same importance in Ramadan, it definitely made me feel like I wasn't giving enough attention to my religion. So yeah.
Hmm. And did you think that those things were worth doing? I mean, like we were talking about how they're supposed to make you a better person. Like, did the suffering and the bad sleep schedule and the hunger and how it messed up with your body chemistry, did it feel worth it for you?
So I guess like that's something that I've been thinking about a lot this Ramzan is like for me, my parents always told me that Ramadan it's about building good habits. So all of this suffering that you are going through, the idea is that if you're able to maintain it during a very stressful period like Ramadan where you're not eating food, then these habits should sustain themselves past Ramadan. And I guess for me, like, yes and no, it was worth it. Like, I got my 5 daily prayers straight when I did my first Ramadan. Like, that was the one good habit that I built during Ramadan. And then that habit lasted for the rest of the year. Um, and so I think like that kind of set the precedent for every other Ramadan after that, that if you really try to set a good habit, then all the suffering is worth it. Um, but again, like after that Ramadan, like my other Ramzans weren't really that productive. So I still believe that it was worth it. I just thought that I wasn't doing it correctly, and that's why I wasn't seeing the results that I should.
I can really relate to that, especially when I wasn't doing everything I was supposed to be doing as a Muslim. It always felt like the problem was with me and not Islam, because Islam and all the things that you're supposed to do in it are perfect, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, precisely. Um, did you find, I guess, Ramzan productive? Because like I keep going back and forth with this, in that like I think my answer right now is that it really depends on the person. Like for some people, it really does do you good. Like there's a whole mindfulness aspect of Ramzan also. I know a lot of people binge eat, and I myself also experienced a lot of binge eating during this period. But for my mom, for example, like she really slowed down with her days when she was forced to kind of sit with us as a family and eat. Um, my
Mm.
dad also, like, he cut out sugar one Ramzan and then he stayed with that after it. So I guess my answer right now is that like it depends on the person as to whether or not it's productive. But I guess like this is kind of my whole issue with Ramadan is like it's very strict compared to other types of fasting, like in Lent, or I have a Hindu friend who was telling me that they also fast, but it's very individualized for them. So like you choose what you want to give up. So some people give up like salt, some people give up food completely, some people just give up water. But it's like the degree and intensity of fasting is up to you and you're supposed to tailor it to your own needs to build those good habits. So I guess overall like that's my issue with Ramadan is like the rules are so strict and it's like a one size fit all when different things will work differently for different people. So like Ramzan can work for some people, and it has worked for me in the past. But like as I'm growing older, I'm becoming a different person, and it kind of stopped working for me after a while.
Yeah, and I mean, the big question that I want to ask you now is, like, would you consider yourself no longer a believer in Islam today?
Yeah. Hmm.
And wouldn't you say all those things of Ramadan are much harder when you no longer believe in the religion that's, supposed to be teaching it as a good thing. Because I see your point, and I totally agree with you actually, that I think there's a lot of aspects of Ramadan that are good beyond just, spending time with family and having big dinners together, but the mindfulness and having the space where your day-to-day life is no longer the main focus, but trying to improve yourself is the main focus. But here was where my issue was, where trying to improve yourself has to be done through what Islam says is good for you. And that's where it kind of fell apart for me. How did it work for you once you left Islam?
Yeah, I guess I've been very lucky in that I left Islam a year ago and I live in a dorm in college. So I don't live with my family. And so it's been fairly easy on the day to day because like I don't fast and I don't have to subject myself to those same restrictions. And then like when my parents call, I just tell them, yeah, like I'm fasting. I just opened my fast, things like that. Like it's a lot easier to, I guess, put up that pageantry when you don't live with your family. Um, my younger brother is kind of questioning religion, and he's not fasting this Ramadan. And it's definitely been a lot more difficult for him. In like, there's obviously a lot of sneaking. Like, he sneaks food, he keeps extra water bottles in his backpack to drink during the school day. So yeah, I guess directly as an answer to your question, for me, it hasn't been that hard just because I'm very lucky because I don't live with my family. But like for my brothers, for example, it's definitely requires a little bit more like thinking and planning to get through the day.
No, that totally makes sense. In a way, for me, it's a lot easier too because my immediate like my immediate family, my parents know I'm no longer practicing, but I have a lot of extended family members around the world that are super religious, and but they don't know I've left Islam, let alone that I do this
Yeah.
channel, and it makes it so much easier having an ocean and a continent between us. It's very, very, very difficult though when all those relatives are all around you and you have to see them every day and have dinner with them, and they know all of your business basically.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes like I definitely worry if it's easy to if it's easy to tell because like on my end I'm doing everything that I can to make sure that I'm not giving any hints that I'm actually not fasting. But I guess there is like a slight paranoia in the back of my head that I'll somehow mess up and I will out myself. Um, but honestly, the other, I guess, more difficult aspect of Ramadan for me has been like missing the whole family aspect of it. Like my dad used to work night shifts when I was a kid, and so we never really had dinner together as a family. And because he would be sleeping during the day, and then like as we got older, my brothers were busy with sports. I got really busy with what I was doing at school, at work. And so Ramadan was really the only chance that we got to slow down and sit down as a family. And my mom would also decorate lightly for Ramadan. And so there's like camaraderie and like collective suffering that I kind of miss in a very, very like weird way. And so,
It's
yeah,
so true.
yeah, it's like even in my family group chat when like, they're cracking like Ramadan jokes about like how hungry or like how thirsty they are. Like I feel a weird amount of FOMO that I don't feel that and that I'm just living my life regularly. So
Yeah, that there's something to be said about that too, and I think it's something that maybe religions beyond Islam use to their advantage, where collective suffering and shared adversity bonds people together. I think that's how even armies work when they put recruits through like the horrible basic training, and you just have to suffer together, and then you become really close. And I can really see that maybe of something like Ramadan, because like you were saying, you're not even allowed to drink water
mm,
all day, which is really, really tough for a lot of people. And I mean, for you today, is there anything left remaining of Ramadan that you practice or that you want to practice?
I've considered the idea of going to a few iftars because some of my, like, I have a lot of Muslim friends at college because I was Muslim for the majority of when I was at college. And so I've considered, like, not fasting the whole day, but just, like, going to iftar once or twice, or maybe going to Sari. But, like, this is also something that I haven't really worked through of, like, I think Ramadan does a lot more harm than good. And so by participating in these traditions and these rituals, even as something that's just for fun, like, am I perpetuating something that I think actually causes a lot of suffering in the big picture? And so, yeah, like, I've considered the idea of, I guess, going to Sari or going to Iftar, um, but I haven't done it just because I feel a bit weird in participating in something that that I would hope doesn't exist someday.
Yeah, yeah. And by the way, you remind me of something that happened to me where I got caught not being like a proper practicing Muslim. I was invited to an iftar dinner one year by a Syrian family, and I sat down and I started having dinner, and I'm left-handed, and
Mm,
I always eat, like, I always hold the fork with my left hand or spoon with my left hand, and that's a no-no if you're like a specific kind of practicing Muslim. You're supposed
right.
to eat with your right hand. And uh, immediately after I started eating, there were like a couple of kids at the table, and they basically said, "Dad, he's eating with his left hand." And I was like, "Whoopsie." They probably already clued in just because I didn't join them for prayer. I came up with some excuse. I can't remember what it was. But
Mm,
yeah, that's what exposed me, and it's kind of sad in a way in which, I felt bad. I remember feeling bad, even though I don't feel bad about not liking Islam anymore or not believing in Islam anymore either. Um, but I felt bad because, they were trying to reach out to me, like they were trying to connect with me and bond with me by inviting me to dinner, and then I felt like I was slapping them in the face by not joining them in prayer, and also in not doing like some of the
right.
basic things that you're supposed to do as a Muslim. So I felt very much like an outsider in that moment.
Yeah. Honestly, like, that's a really interesting perspective, like the fact that you're left-handed, because there are so many, like you have to follow the sunnah, and there are so many sunnahs that, like, you have to do this with your left hand and you have to do this with your right hand. And so I guess, like, this again is just this religion saying that there's only one way to do something, and there really isn't any flexibility for if you're
No,
someone who doesn't follow the norm. Yeah.
no, exactly. So
Mhm.
that's the thing about those things where it bonds people together, which is great. But then if you don't fit the mold of what you're supposed to be bonding together over, then you're a pariah. You're ostracized. There's something really wrong with you. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And then also with the connecting aspect to it, I also really feel that. Like, I think, I guess some people say that I'm very, like, naive, but, like, I like to think the best of people. And so, like, when my Muslim friends are, like, reaching out to me to go to iftar, like, I see that as, like, they just want to connect with me. They want to spend more time
Yeah,
with me. Like, they're happy and they want to share their happiness with me, even if they know that I no longer believe. Um, but then, like, there's this voice in the back of my head that's kind of like, oh, but what if they're also inviting you in hopes of, like, showing you, like, how beautiful this is and kind of emotionally, like, roping you back
yeah.
into religion.
Trying to get you to revert, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, mhm.
Okay. That's really great. And I just wanted to highlight this this funny comment here from Hassan Radwan. Good to see you, Hassan. Hassan says, "Ah ha ha, you ate with your left hand. I knew it. You were never a true Muslim." So
Uh,
so Brett, I don't know if you've noticed this from comments on my other videos, but one of the accusations I get from people is that I was never a true Muslim, that I'm some sort of grifter. And that's another thing that people have to deal with, where when you do share your experiences on a public forum like YouTube, there's a lot of Muslims that don't believe that you're for real, that that you're faking for some reason, that you have some kind of agenda against the Muslim world because you belong to another religion. I'm an atheist, so that's not even true for me. So yeah, that makes it even more challenging when people don't really believe what we say.
Yeah, for sure. And like when I'm trying to explain my reasons for leaving to like my Muslim friends, for example, or just like talking about what kind of Muslim I was like obviously I wasn't a perfect Muslim. Like I'd say I was fairly practicing and I like hit pretty much all the major like points and the main rituals that you were supposed to do. But obviously I did sin sometimes. And so like I always catch myself like very hesitant to talk about like how complicated of a Muslim I was, like how I wasn't perfect. Because I'm like, oh, like what if that's like picked out and been like, oh, but if you had been a perfect Muslim, then you wouldn't have left. And I've also gotten some of those comments from my friends of, yeah, like, you know, you prayed, like you wore hijab, but you still wear makeup or
There's always something, isn't there?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, there's always some kind of standard that people have in their mind, Muslims have in their minds of, well, this is what makes you a good Muslim. And what I think is really the case, especially when it comes to women, is that they'll keep moving that standard until they hit something weird that you're not doing. So you
Mhm.
could be a Muslim woman who doesn't wear hijab, but uh, because you're still Muslim, they'll be very accepting of you. And if you convert to Islam, even better. But then it could be someone who then leaves and doesn't wear hijab, and that becomes the point of criticism. So a really big double standard there.
Yeah, and in my experience too, like I went down the whole like rabbit hole and I ended up in kind of a very bad place where I was full like niqabi, was wearing only black, like I was like cannot wear bright colors. And and so like when I tell people that, like their response is, "Oh, you went in too deep. Like you restricted yourself too much and that's why you left." And then like as you said, like if I had not gone that deep and if I had just been a hijabi, then like the argument would have been, "Oh, but then you weren't wearing it correctly and you really should have gone that deep." So there really is no winning here.
Yeah, just no winning whatsoever. And Brett, I do want to keep talking to you, but I do have a long
Yeah.
lineup. So I just want to give other people a chance to talk. If you want to stick around, I mean, feel free to go do whatever you want to do. But if you want to stick around, maybe we'll have time to just talk a bit more at the end of the live stream, if you're able to do so.
Yeah, awesome.
Uh,
Thank you for having me.
oh no, no, it was a pleasure, and I just loved learning a little bit more about your story.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a great rest of your stream.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on again. Okay. All right. And so I think we have three people that are ready to go, but I think one of them is taking food out of their oven in the kitchen. So Krispeh or Crispy, we'll get to you next, and I'll jump to Asma next. Asma is also waiting. Asma, you can let us know in the private chat if you're ready to go. I'll just also message Asma. Okay. Yeah, we'll check in with Asma to see. Oh, Asma is ready. So you're going to hop on right now in 3, 2, 1. Hello, Asma. You are live.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am doing very well. And Asma, so in the private chat, you mentioned that you're calling from China.
Yeah, that's right. I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
Chinese, but
Oh,
I do
okay.
live here.
Okay, wow, wow. So Asma, welcome to the channel, and thank you so much for waiting for your chance to speak. I'm really interested to know about your story. You mentioned that you discovered the channel because you looked up first Ramadan as an ex-Muslim, and you found the previous call-ins, I assume.
Yeah, that was just a few days back,
Okay.
and I've watched a lot of your videos ever since, so it was the highlight of my week.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you managed to find me. I always wonder how easy it is to find content like mine on YouTube because I don't think it's a very popular subject to be criticizing Islam in general, let alone on YouTube. So I'm always so happy to learn that people from around the world like you actually do manage to find it.
Yeah, it took me some research. Like when I look up Islam or something like that, I find a lot of videos, but I guess because I looked up something specific, like, oh, first Ramadan as an ex-Muslim, that's why your video popped out. So I'm really happy I was able to find it.
Oh, that's
And
amazing. Yeah, so Asma, what would you like to talk about?
uh, really, I was gonna talk about Ramadan in general at first because that was what I was thinking about lately. You know,
Mhm.
it's not my first, like, I'm only here as a student in China. I'm originally from Algeria, so I lived my whole life in a Muslim community with a Muslim family and everything. But this is my second Ramadan here. The first Ramadan I was still Muslim, and even though I felt a bit away from family, I did kind of miss that community feeling, but I was still able to feel it here because, like, the city I live in has also Chinese Muslims. So that's something that I like about Ramadan, or just about Islam in general, that you always find people
Wherever
from
you
the same
go,
religion
yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, you always find mosques, you always find people with the same exact things, and even the language. Like when I go, generally, as I'm living here, not a lot of people speak Arabic. So the mosque was the only place where I could actually hear Arabic because they would be uh, praying with the Quran in Arabic, which was a bit funny because Chinese people don't understand Arabic. So you're just sitting there and you're only one understanding what he's saying, and then everyone is just repeating that stuff. So
Mhm.
at the time, I kind of liked it because I was able to hear my language. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's one of the reasons I left because, you know, all these communities of people from other countries that don't speak Arabic and still are praying in that language and basically just worshiping in that language. So yeah, that was one of the reasons I looked up Ramadan. And the second one was also that I was physically not feeling well because, like, I'm used to fasting since I was, let's say, 11, 12. So,
Yeah,
like,
that's around when
physically,
I started too, yeah.
yeah. So, physically, like, my body felt like it's doing something wrong. Just like, even mentally, I don't believe in it anymore. But physically, I was just not able to eat. I felt like I want to throw up just from the thought of it. And also because, like, my roommate is Muslim, so the whole, like, she's putting Quran on the TV the whole time, so I'm being reminded of it all the time, even though when I go out I don't really see it, but at home I'm just being reminded of it all the time. uh yeah, so that's it really about Ramadan. I miss, like, the community, and I really enjoyed Ramadan growing up, like up until last year. Even last year, I had no one here. I was alone. I only was able to go to the mosque a couple of times in the month, but I really enjoyed it. So it was one of my favorite months, and I guess now I'm just grieving that, even though I don't really believe in the religion anymore.
Yeah,
Mm,
it really is like a feeling of grief, isn't it? Like for me, you know, it was guilt and grief because it felt like, you know, I was turning my back on my heritage and my identity,
mm,
and like I was intentionally trying to live my life in a way in which was opposite to what a lot of you know, a lot of people from my background think is very, very important. And
yeah, I
but
understand.
for me, I couldn't help it. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't truly believe in it anymore. So it was like this tough decision of, do I live a lie, or do I try to stay true to myself even if that isolates me?
Yeah, I understand. Actually, guilt was not one of the feelings I felt because
That's good.
it was one of the main reasons why I left Islam. So it was the first thing I worked on. Like, everything I'm doing, I just worked on letting guilt out of it. So even when Ramadan came, I didn't feel any guilt. It was more about just recognizing the feeling of grief and the feeling of being away, and even some loneliness in some sort. Because even apart from religion, I felt a bit lonely living so far from family and community. And at the time, religion was all I had to feel some sort of connection,
Yeah.
because it's something, it's something that connects you from people that are not particularly from your country. So when I lost that too, it kind of felt even more lonely. And what else did I want to say?
I do have a question for you, Asma, from someone in the live chat. If you don't mind, I can ask you it.
Yeah, sure.
So Surav, thank you for the question, asks, do you feel unprotected or underprotected now that you've stopped believing? And I guess that could mean a couple of things, like you're no longer protected by Allah, but also maybe that you don't have the support of the Muslim community anymore because you're no longer part of it.
So when it comes to support, like my biggest supporter has always been my mom, and she's also leaving now. So
Oh, she's leaving Islam as well
yeah,
for the same reasons
it
as you?
happened around the same time, but it was for different reasons. Like I had
Oh,
my
really?
journey, yeah, she had her journey, and then it was just a coincidence that I talked about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm going through that too." So when it comes to support, I'm getting a lot of support from her. I never felt like the biggest connection I had. And then there's also my dad, but my dad is kind of the opposite. He even called me today, being like, "Oh, how is your deen going? How's Ramadan going? Are you reading the Quran every day?" And that was one of the hardest things I went through when I was leaving religion, is my dad, because he's the sweetest man ever. He like provides everything, emotionally, financially, like anything you can think of. He's the best dad ever. But then when it comes to religion, he's a religious person, even though he doesn't really force it on us. But I felt like if I am to tell him, he would still support me and he would still love me, but he would be kind of devastated. He would be deeply sad because he would generally believe that I'm going to hell. So that's something that keeps me kind of in the closet, just not wanting to hurt him and not wanting to put him in that position where he has to deal with that, because he has dealt with a lot of stuff when it comes to religion. Because so I took off my hijab even before I left Islam. I had this idea, this different version of Islam in my head. I guess that's what kept me in the religion for so long, is just that I found my own beliefs. Like I took off my hijab because I generally believed it's not required by Allah in Islam, and a lot of other beliefs that are kind of controversial or that most Muslims don't believe in it. And I was open about that. Like my dad would talk to me, I would debate with him, I would tell him like, "Oh yeah, there's this person, this person, this verse, so I don't believe that hijab is mandatory anymore," and stuff like that. But when it comes like, and he accepts all that stuff, but when it came to actually leaving the religion, I feel like that would be a limit for him. So I don't
It'd be
really want
too
to go.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he also doesn't know that your mother left as well.
He knows about my mother. He
Okay.
knows like I mean they're married, so he has to know.
I hope so.
And yeah, she stopped praying. She's a hijabi too. She wants to take it off, but it's not just him who's stopping her. It's really the community, because she still lives within it and she's worn it for so long that now it just feels like a part of her. And she debates with him a lot, but she has not like, I guess he knows, but at the same time doesn't know that she's not Muslim anymore. And he kind of also blames her for me having some controversial opinions. So, like, even between them, if it goes like too far, it just marital kind of problems.
Mhm.
But when it comes to me, he just sees me as this daughter who he invested so much on and who loves deeply. So there's no really going away from that daughter-father relationship. It's not like a marriage where you can always, have other options.
Yeah, yeah, you're bonded. You're bonded for life in a different way, father and
Yeah.
daughter. Yeah. And there's a question for you, another question for you from the live chat. So Gerwalk asks, how are you dealing with the loneliness now, especially since now is Ramadan?
Mm. For now, I think the biggest thing is just to distract myself. My schedule is really busy with everything that's going on. So when I'm outside, when everyone is just Chinese, doesn't know really much about religion.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot of. I'm a really busy person, so I don't really realize it. And even like the first day, it was on a weekend. I remember it was no, it was on a Friday. So I was home even during iftar, and that was kind of that day I was depressed because what had happened is when I moved in with my roommate, I was still Muslim. So we had some conversations about that. And then Ramadan came in and she knocked on my door during iftar and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I made iftar, come eat with me." And then I was like, I didn't expect it. I completely forgot about her. So when I went to eat with her, I was debating like, should I tell her I'm not a Muslim anymore? Should I tell her that I'm Muslim? And then eventually, it was too awkward. I just uh, pretended having fasted the whole day. And that's not even the worst part because when we finished eating, I was like, oh yeah, we had some conversation, and what بيقبل, etc. And she was like, oh, I'm gonna pray Maghrib now. Do you want to pray with me? And then like I had no excuse. I'm sitting there. She's sitting there.
Yeah.
There's
You're kind
no
of
running
stuck.
away from it. Yeah. So I prayed with her, and I felt such like a hypocrite. It was the worst feeling. I think that was what made me really look up onto YouTube, because at first I didn't really feel it. It was like, oh yeah, because I had already decided not to fast Ramadan, and I didn't feel anything about it. It was until I had that interaction with her that I felt devastated, and then I just started looking for some support. Uh, but yeah, with the dealing with the loneliness, I'm just finding the sense of community elsewhere. Uh, I'm also
I
a
think that's the
dancer.
only thing we can do. Yeah. That's the only thing we do. Try to find a community elsewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah. You said
first,
you're also a dancer.
yeah. Latin dance like bachata, salsa, something like that. If anyone knows the community, it's really good community, like even worldwide. And I go to practices a lot, so it felt like the new community for me rather than the old one.
I'm so glad you managed to find new communities like that. I think that's so important. And for me, it was actually a lot of different things. And one of them was sports like soccer. Because even though there's Muslims that play soccer, when you're doing that kind of thing together, it doesn't matter what you believe, what politicians you support, because it's about the game, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, I get
Yeah,
you. You never fail to mention the soccer.
I know, right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Every year, I'm
every
a
year.
yeah, I'm a volleyball player too, so I find community in that. And
Yeah.
I think what made it a lot easier for me is how uh, China is really not into religion. So you never get it mentioned. Like even Christians, any other type of religions is not really a big thing here. So wherever you go, you wouldn't find much of it. And even like in my specific district, there are a lot of Muslims. All my friends are not Muslim. So even like last year when I was fasting, I was the only one fasting. So now that I'm not, it's way easier, I guess.
Mhm. No, I understand. And Asma, again, I want to keep talking to you, but I have to be cognizant that there's other people waiting in the queue to speak. So I do have to let you go, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure, no
but
problem.
I would love to talk to you again. I think what you're doing is really cool, very interesting. Beyond just like living in China, but trying to rebuild and find like a new community and sense of belonging when you're in such a different country. It's really fascinating, and I
You,
I wish you the best of luck in that.
thank you so much. You helped a lot too, so thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you. And Asma, if I can ask you, can you DM me or email me privately, because I feel like there's like a lot more that we could possibly talk about if you're interested, of course, like in a separate video.
Yeah, sure, of
Yeah,
course.
you can DM me on Instagram, but you can also find my email on my about page on YouTube. So whatever you prefer.
All right, yeah, because I only had your YouTube. I didn't have much time to dig in more.
Oh, no worries, no worries. You can find it on the YouTube about page then.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much again, Asma. I'll
Talk
let
to
you
you soon.
go, and I hope you have a great rest of the Ramadan.
Thank you.
Take care. Wow. Very, very, very interesting. And again, as much as I, disparage social media, and I mean, I guess that's like the popular thing to do now. I think this is what the power of it is. There's no way Asma and I, and all of us watching, would have connected if it wasn't for websites like YouTube connecting us. So uh, that's really great. And yeah, Gerwalk, you can post my email in the chat if that makes it a bit easier for Asma to find. I appreciate that. Good to see you, KCA Randy. KCA Randy says everyone knows Arsenal is the top club. Well, I think you should check the score line for today's game. I could be eating my own words. Last I checked, Manchester United, which is my club, was winning. But knowing them, it's very possible that they might have blown that lead. Anyway, good to see you as well. I am not your sister. Who says, Asma, I love that you found community in dance. I found it in jujitsu. Very, very interesting. So yeah, different things. I think what matters is that we find something that we can have that's shared common ground, and where we each have our authenticity. And I think that's so much more powerful when it doesn't involve a religion, a God telling us what to do, especially if that God is invisible. And thank you, Hassan. Hassan says it was a draw, 1-1. Okay, thank you for disappointing me there. And I guess it should be expected at this point in Manchester United's crisis season. And good to see you, Ermi, a viewer for a few years, first time catching me live. Yeah, I should do more live streams like this. I'll try to do more of them this year, but I do try to make sure to at least do one for every Ramadan. So, okay, Krispeh, I think we're ready for you if you're here. All right, you are. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, I'm going to add you on in one moment. Before I do that, I'm just going to check the status of the poll question. Is Ramadan a positive force in the world? Yes or no? You can still vote in that. It's in the live chat. 85% say no, and 15% say yes. And again, if you want to call in, we do have a bit of a queue right now, but you never know, you could get in. The link is also pinned in the video description to call in. Sorry, in the live chat. All right. Okay, Krispeh, I'm gonna get you on in 3, 2, 1. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. And is it crispy or crispa?
And yeah, Crispy's good. Crispy's good.
Crispy is good. Okay.
People get twisted up over that. The name's a bit of it's misspelled. It has a bit of a story, but that's a story for another time.
No worries whatsoever. Okay. Okay. And yeah, thank you so much for your patience again in coming in. And yeah, I mean, lots to talk about, but I think the thing that interested me in just sharing a little bit about yourself to the moderator is I was wondering if you could tell me about your experience of converting to Islam.
I didn't. I was born Muslim.
Oh, sorry, I'm mixing you up with unHappySubstance. Or no, so Grunkle
Oh,
Stan. Okay, so yeah, you can just take the lead then. Sorry about that.
oh no worries, no worries. Let me actually scroll up to see what I said. Um, what did I? Okay, right. Okay, yeah. Right. So. I'm Hello, I'm Crispy. I left Islam, I'd say, going on just over 5 years now, officially. It's kind of I say 5 years because it's officially like somewhere in early February where it's just like, to hell with the faith. But
Oh, so like
the,
right
the,
before the pandemic started.
it actually, yeah, it's such a coincidence. And I remember that Ramadan actually is it's so weird. Is like I was still living with my parents at the time, and it's like it's so scary you know. I hate to say it, but it was scary. It was a scary time because like man, it like became real to me that I wasn't even, I'm kind of an imposter, but
Mhm.
I had to keep it on the down low. And yeah, but yeah, it was right before the pandemic. Such timing.
I know, yeah, and I can really relate to that because once I started questioning Islam, so I didn't have the thing where it never really made sense to me. Uh, I always felt that if there was any kind of problem that I was having with it or something that didn't make sense, the problem was with me, if that makes sense. So it was
Yeah,
like
no,
something that I don't understand.
yeah, yeah.
So like the question I wanted to ask you is what about Islam never really made sense to you?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
I
It's
know where to
something that
start,
brought
right?
me. Yeah, very hard to start. And it's like all in hindsight, right? And you're always like, but wait, and then you remember certain things and you don't remember certain things, and but I always had trouble in general with like authority, and I promise I'm going somewhere with this, but
Okay.
I like, for example, back in primary school, I'd never listen to my teachers, and they always have a rough time trying to get me to write my ABCs and whatever. And so whenever my parents were like, oh, we're Muslims, we believe such and such, we follow such and such rules. I just always broke it because I was such a rebel. So that's, I guess, where it started. But it also like never actually made sense. Like people would say things such like, God, what was like an example of something like, hmm, like people would tell me that stealing is wrong, and I'd be like, no, people would be like, stealing is wrong because it's haram, and I'm like, yeah, that's wrong. I didn't need Islam to tell me that. I just know it's wrong. I just felt like I always knew things were wrong before the religion, told me. I just knew. I looked into this more actually recently, and I think I don't know if you guys in the chat know Sharif Jabber. He made a video on this, where do you get your morals from? It's something we're born with, but it just always like I didn't need the rules to tell me. Like I just knew. So
Y-
yeah.
Yeah, so my thing with it, and this is after I started questioning Islam, I was very much like a gullible believer. I just believed whatever I was told when I was Muslim. But when I
Mm,
started questioning it, to me, one of the things that really made me think, okay, what is going on here was like the whole thing about homosexuality is a sin.
yeah.
And so I moved to Canada for university and I started actually meeting gay people. And I saw that famous movie about two men that fall in love, Brokeback Mountain. I've talked
Mm,
about that before on the channel. And again, like the explanation is it's wrong because Allah says it's sin, it's haram. But why is it haram? Why is it a sin? That's the thing that always seemed to be missing. And what I realized when you're a Muslim, whether it's homosexuality or other things, it doesn't really need an explanation. You just need to be told Allah says it's
that's
a
right.
sin,
Yeah.
and that's where it stops.
Yeah. That's right. That's totally right. And the thing is, morality is complicated, and the philosophers to this day and scientists argue about, morals in general. And um, it's such a like you can't put it in a book basically. Things are right or wrong, depending on the circumstances, which are always complicated, and it's impossible for any one of us to ultimately like judge if an action is ultimately right or ultimately wrong. It's really difficult for that. Um, and that's the thing about Islam and religious thinking in general, is that it inhibits moral thinking. It's just you're thinking by the book now instead of according to the circumstances. And so what often happens with that is that what is wrong turns into right, and what is right turns into wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Crispy, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about as well, like what Ramadan is like for you now.
I don't live with my parents now, and it's broad daylight, and I'm eating my chicken strips. I actually, to me, it always I might be a sociopath, man, but I always find it fun to rebel against the rules. And like I wouldn't break the law, for example, but for me, what I'm doing right now for Ramadan is instead of not eating, I'm eating double. So I started my bulk. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of it's just sentimental to me. The only problem is that when I had to tell my mom that I'm not, she doesn't, my parents don't know that I'm not a believer, but they know that I'm not fasting. And I had to tell them that, it was just kind of an argument. I was just like, no, listen, I'm not gonna tell you what's right or wrong. I just I'm just not doing this. And they kind of argued with me about it, but I was like, what are you gonna do? Stop me?
And like, is it easy for you to do that? Do you think because easier, I should say, because you don't live with them anymore and like you're more independent?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I don't have to hide it anymore. I live in Canada as well now, so it's not difficult. Yeah. And with I actually wanted to go back to this with what you mentioned. A lot of ex-Muslims actually have that with the questioning, like on what's wrong with me. I was really lucky to have never had that. Um, so like it was never really hard for me because it's just like I was breaking the rules anyway. So like just go
Yeah.
along with it.
No, and exactly that I think that kind of attitude is necessary because like I was saying when I was a believing Muslim, I was very much, and like when I was a kid, I was always the one who did exactly what the teacher said or my parents said. And
Hmm.
you can actually see how I started becoming less of a believing good Muslim the more I started just rebelling in life in general. And I think for me, it was the question of, well, why am I supposed to be doing this? Like asking those why questions are so important, and I think it's
Yeah,
something that
that's right.
doesn't exist when you're like a practicing Muslim in a lot of instances because the answer is just God.
Yeah,
Yeah. There is
that's
one other thing I wanted to ask you,
hmm
this is something you mentioned just to the moderator. Uh, you were saying how you don't feel like it's your place to say to anyone what they should believe or what's right or wrong. And you were saying
yeah.
earlier about how I think you were basically saying, nothing is black and white, and like and there's no one who
Hmm.
can completely judge any kind of situation. How do you feel
Right.
about that when you look at something like Islam and there is the clear possibility that there's a lot of teachings in it that lead directly to harming people, like teaching little kids about hell is one thing that
Hmm.
always comes to mind to me. How do we approach that while respecting people's right to choose what they believe?
It is. I agree. It's very difficult, especially that
Yeah.
part. It's not to me that like the spirit in which I meant it in is that a lot of the time this kind of mentality of no one should tell the other what is right or wrong to believe is not afforded in Islam. And a lot of the times, not just my parents but authority figures in general, they would tell me this is right and this is wrong, knowing damn well that like you could be wrong too, like. And like even in Islam, like God created humans flawed with their flaws. So you could very well be wrong by your own beliefs too. Um, that would just so that's the experiment is like that isn't afforded back to me. That people often tell me I'm wrong and I'm breaking the rules and I'm a terrible person because I don't believe in such and such. Um, it's but it's true that there are a lot of harmful teachings in Islam, and it's very difficult. It's just not my place. Sometimes it pains me, but I do have to let it go because it's just a losing battle. It just is. Um, there's nothing I can do about it. But I really wish. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. It's a very
It's not
difficult
easy.
position.
Yeah. Well, my
Yeah,
thing, because I get asked this kind of question all the time, actually, just because I'm, online, like with a channel
of
talking
course.
about religion. Like my feeling always is that I kind of just want to make the case, like make my argument, and then let people decide for themselves. Like I would never say, for example, that I want everyone to just stop being Muslim and I want to ban Islam or Christianity or whatever it is. Uh, and I would never support something like banning the hijab, which I know some
Yeah.
ex-Muslims do support, and I can see where they're coming from. For me, I think it's much more powerful when people decide it for themselves, and what I'm hoping for is that Muslims just leave Islam because they no longer need it or they don't want it anymore, not because they've been
Yeah,
made to.
that's true. And that's like even for me, like the way I look at like leaving Islam experience now is that when I believe quote unquote, I guess I give the Muslims this one time. I didn't really believe, depending on who you ask, I guess, but when I believed that um it was just like I believed because I was in a time when I had to believe and it was helpful for me and it helped me get through life and I just had to, and it was in my community and it's just I got along with it. And now the times have changed, things have changed. I found a new way of living and I changed my beliefs with it. And that's all that happened. It's circumstances in a certain time of place that caused me to be who I am.
That's very powerful, and I think that's what I hope all ex-Muslims can reach. It's not easy for some, because they are still stuck in living with their family and dependent on
It
them.
is.
Yeah, and or in the Muslim world, I think it is easier for us in a country like Canada, especially with
That's
our
true.
family far away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crispy, I gotta let you go just so I can give other callers a chance.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do have one question I think for you and me. So
Mm.
again from Surav, have you started eating pork?
This is fun. Yeah, yeah. So they have it's not healthy, but I have my bacon every day, and they just yesterday
Oh,
I had
you're
a nice little.
bulking. You got to bulk.
Yeah, yeah. I am bulking, and some of the bulk is going on pork, so it's really yeah. I was laughing to myself a little bit. I was cooking that meal. I was like, look at me, I'm going straight to hell. But yeah, no, I do eat pork.
You know what's so interesting about that? So yeah, I eat pork as well. I started years and years ago, not soon after I left. But then
Yeah,
you have some ex-Muslims that I think just because they got so used their whole lives to not having it that they still kind of are repulsed by it on some level because, for example,
yeah.
my brother also left Islam. He's younger than me. He
Mm.
likes bacon because come on, crispy bacon, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
It's fake.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But he can't stand most other forms of pork. Like I genuinely think it's because the indoctrination still sticks around in his mind in some way. Like if you gave him like a pork roast or whatever, he won't touch it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It sticks. It does stick. It even like even
Hmm.
with me, like now I speak so confidently about like my beliefs and that. For a while, especially around sex, like the fucking my beliefs stuck with me for a while, and all the
Oh,
repression
same,
and all that. So
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is quite difficult. But yeah, anyways, I won't take up much more of your time.
Oh,
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you so much for being patient again, Crispy, and it was great to chat with you. I hope to see you in a future live stream too.
Of course, of course.
Okay,
Have a good day. Bye bye.
take care. All right, thank you so much, Crispy. Uh, really cool to see people from. So now we've had someone from Canada, the US, and China, and we've still got quite a few people in the queue. And also, I just wanted to give a shout out to Gerwalk. Thank you so much again for all your support over the years for my channel. So I've officially made you a moderator. I probably should have done this a long time ago. So yeah, just thank you again, Gerwalk. I really, really appreciate all your support. And okay, so we've got a couple people in the queue right now. So Arif, you are next in the queue. I don't know if you can hear. Oh yeah, I see you. I see you. Are you ready to go? Okay, and are you good to be on the camera? Okay. All right. Adding you in 3, 2, 1.
Hey,
Hello. We
how's it
we
going,
meet
man?
again.
Yeah, yeah. The same was last year, wasn't it? It's with Zara, I think it was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's been a while. But yeah, you've been supporting my channel for a while, and I really, really appreciate the support, and I appreciate you coming on and being on camera too.
yeah,
I think that's really great, and I always as speaking as someone who didn't intend to have a YouTube channel or be on video at all, the thing that I realized was that it really connects with people more to just be able to see a face. and that's the challenge of being an ex-Muslim often, is that it's kind of dangerous to show your face. But yeah, that's the world we live in, isn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously again amazing what you guys all ex-Muslims, whether I agree with them or not, that is a huge thing in itself. So yeah, it's amazing work that you guys obviously
Thank you so much.
in terms of recent times. It's just you and Aladdin. I really do like your. I try to as much as I can. I try to catch your streams. So yeah, they're really and in recent times it's quite interesting, like just to find to see what you guys are just like your like your just personal. You mentioned like the football today. I didn't know you sport. I didn't know you were massively into football. I think there was someone who mentioned Real Madrid in one of your streams.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I didn't realize. So again today, like you mentioning, you sporting Man United, and I think the
Well, I
previous.
briefly grew up in the UK. You probably didn't know that either. Yeah.
I think I did, because you mentioned it in one of your first. I think you mentioned it again in your other one, but your first
Leaving Islam
Leaving
story
Islam
video.
video. Yeah, I think that's actually maybe one of the first videos that I saw of yours, and I remember you mentioned you went to a Christian school,
An Anglican
Catholic
school.
Anglican.
It was
Yeah.
Anglican. Yeah, I was reading from the
Yeah.
Bible every morning. And yet I was still a Muslim then. It's interesting how when you're a kid you don't really think about those kinds of things, or it maybe being a little bit odds. I think some Muslim parents would not be comfortable with that, but my parents were.
Yeah. I mean, also I didn't know how old you were, so I was quite surprised at that as well when I found out. Obviously, I didn't ask you back in Oslo, but yeah, I thought you were much younger than. I think you mentioned it in one of your last videos or streams. And I just assumed for some reason that you like. I think. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming like I thought maybe you're like in your mid-20s. Again, I'm assuming that maybe Aladdin's the same kind of in his. I'm pretty sure he is younger than
He's younger
you,
than
right?
me for sure. That's what.
Yeah.
I
So
don't
I
know
just
his
assumed that
exact
you were the
age.
same kind of age as well. So I was surprised when I realized that
I'm
it's
young at
younger as well.
heart.
Yeah. There you go, younger at heart. I think you guys. I think it's the grey hair, man. I think I think once the grey hair starts popping out, because we had this in Oslo.
Oh, I should mention for anyone watching who might not know what we're talking about. So, we met in real life, and along with friend of the channel, Apostate Aladdin, who is also an ex-Muslim. And if you aren't a subscriber to his channel, I highly recommend you subscribe. Look him up on YouTube. But we were all in Oslo, Norway, to attend Celebrating Dissent, which is a conference that's held. They try to hold it every year anyway, as a forum for atheists. For a lot of ex-Muslims to just speak out against the institutions that oppress so many people around the world. And there were people from all over the world there too, and it was really amazing to see how something that can start online, like this little YouTube channel, this little community, it does actually extend to the real world and has its impacts. And yeah, it was really great to meet you and so many other people there.
Yeah, it's really. I'm really glad. I don't. It's strange actually, because if I didn't go on the call with you, I mean, I had been to one of these. It wasn't Celebrating Dissent, but it was like a kind of conference type that was arranged like a long time ago, and I went to that because it was close by. But yeah, I don't think I would have gone if maybe if I didn't speak to you and Zara, because obviously you mentioned on the call. I was like, oh, yeah. Because I'm sure you must have picked up, but I'm I'm very introverted. I'm very socially awkward as well. quite a bit socially awkward, which I very much own. So yeah, so it's not my like typical like, it's not my environment, but it was so nice, especially like I have to shout out Haram Doodles, like meeting her and her partner. It's just so many nice people there. So yeah, if anyone's ever thinking, and that's the other thing as well, just the community side of it as well. It's everybody's, well, I say even though obviously people have differing views and whatnot, I feel like there is there is enough people, and then it's just if you're there, if you as an ex-Muslim, if you have the chance of kind of meeting people, ex-Muslims in real life, I think it really does impact you, knowing that they it's just different to actually meet people rather
It
than
really
seeing
is,
it
yeah.
online. So
The interesting thing I always found about being an ex-Muslim was, and I think it probably extends to being an atheist too, is you don't have that thing connecting you the way Islam would or a religion would. It's more of like a reaction to it that connects you. So, like you were saying, you could be an ex-Muslim from different parts of the world and have that shared experience of leaving Islam and maybe having some traumas related to it. But then one of you could be a Republican or a fascist even or whatever, and then another would be like an anarchist. So that there isn't really anything that ties the people in their personalities or their political beliefs. It's more of that shared collective experience. So it's an interesting community in that way.
yeah, and the other thing I would also say is just on that, because I feel like because there's a few ex-Muslim YouTubers, obviously like Apostate Prophet and Harris Sultan, obviously. I mean, there's obviously a couple others as well. But I feel again, I'm not trying to assume, but it does feel like when they get to a certain level, like in terms of subscribers and reach, it does. I don't want to use the term grift, but it does feel like they somewhat sell out. Certainly, in my opinion, like Apostate Prophet, it does feel like that way, especially with the recent Christian. I mean, I don't really watch too many of his videos,
The
but
teasing the Christian conversion.
yeah, I feel it's just I feel like it's just the just for the it's ironic because obviously you get that when you're kind of starting out, right? As a ex-Muslim YouTuber, you're just doing it for the money when there really is no money, I guess. But maybe there is now when you get to whatever, I don't know how much Apostate Prophet has got,
He's
250 or
over
whatever.
500,000
Yeah, so at that
subscribers.
point
Yeah.
there is money, right? Like so,
Yeah.
and again, same for like Arif Sultan. He's again, I don't know for sure, but 150. But it's yes, that's the only slight disappointing part. I get the disagreements, but I just again the same with Haris Sultan and Apostate Prophet. I used to really like Haris Sultan used to be one of my favorite channels when I when he started. But then slowly, especially because I'm Pakistani, so he used to do Urdu streams, and I feel he was a little bit more himself, whereas I feel like the English streams he was a bit held back. But he was never ever outrightly rude, like, the way he was like with the lad and a couple of others as well. In fact, even like I don't know if you've seen his stream with his debate with Daniel Hakikatu.
No, I haven't. I can understand how it'd be difficult to be polite with someone like that, Daniel
True. Yeah.
Hakikati, to be
I know.
honest.
I know.
To
Yeah.
play
I'm
devil's
not.
advocate.
Yeah. No. 100%. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not saying. I mean, obviously, again, Horace's point. I just felt like his points are still valid, right? But I just feel like there's certain few things that he done in that stream. It's like, did you? I know he's like he's awful, but I still think there should be like boundaries, especially like maybe not going like try to avoid personally attacking the other person and just try and stay on the arguments. I know it's sometimes difficult, but it kind of gives uh, ex-Muslims and not that they're representing ex-Muslims as a whole, but I guess to a certain extent they kind of are when you get that big, even if they don't want to own that. But I feel like it is. But yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and Arif, if you have anything to share about Ramadan as well, I'd love to hear about it.
yeah. I
Yeah.
was yeah. So I think last time was last Ramadan, my boiler broke down, so I managed to get out of a iftar. But yeah, it's been I did see your poll, so I I'm kind of split, not 50-50. I mean, I did vote no in the poll, but I do feel like that if if there was a third option, I'd say mostly no. And there
Maybe I
is,
should have added a third option. Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it's
Maybe
yeah, I feel like
50-50.
it's harsh maybe saying like it's completely bad because my again, and I obviously I think I did, yeah, I mentioned this last time. Again, my wife is still Muslim. I've been ex-Muslim for over 10 years now, but my children, they're still fasting because again, I think as a child, it's kind of a fun thing. I think someone else mentioned it in the previous call. Growing up, it's kind of a kind of challenge, and it seems like I don't know how, but again, I was the same when I was growing up. I remember, oh yeah, let's try and do the whole day today, and so I think for the kids it's quite fun. And then on
Makes you
top
feel
of
like
that,
a grown-up.
yeah, that
Yeah.
as well. And then on top of that, they've again, charity is there. I know it's like most of the charity comes in Ramadan, but it is still charity, right? And my children have given to charity, and I don't think if it wasn't Ramadan, I'd be very surprised if they just came up to me and saying, "Oh yeah, I want to give charity." So there is benefits to it, and again, like the fasting, even though I don't agree with the way that the fasting is done, there is an element of discipline. So yeah, but overall, I do feel like once you get to an adult, it, it's you realize it's almost like Christmas, right? Like for the Santa Claus. I
Yeah.
feel it's quite similar to that stage. It's fun when you're a kid, but once you grow up, you realize, I'll just it'd be just nice just to keep the iftars and just the
And
cultural aspect.
yeah, sod all the rest, as maybe the British
Exactly.
would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, because you did mention that to me actually, like about your wife. How do you reconcile like the big things? Because for me, well, when it comes to Ramadan or even something like Christmas or Easter, is like you have like all that fun stuff, but then underpinning it is like usually some kind of dark or twisted, teaching.
Mm.
Like if you don't believe in, if you don't accept Jesus, then you're not going to be saved. You're going to go to hell. And Islam, something similar, where if you don't believe in Allah, then if you reject Allah, you're going to hell. How does your wife look at things like that? Because you could say that you're destined to hell, for hell, if you're talking to a believing Muslim.
Yeah, I think there's like yeah, I think for her it's more of a cultural kind of thing. So when we have had discussions, yeah, on that as well, I've mentioned, but then she's like, oh no, well, um, that you could be judged based on your deeds. I'm like, oh, well, what's the point of the religion then, and doing all the yeah, it just basically doesn't make sense. And to be honest, this is, like I say, I've been ex-Muslim for well over 10 years now, and it's gotten to a point where it's like, oh, we try to avoid the religious stuff, and as much as we can, she does her, and I personally, again, I would still want like the cultural stuff. And the other important thing I would say is I feel like it's Aladdin, I think, mentioned this on or his call the other day with I think it was Lily, her name was.
Mhm.
And she was I think he did mention, like, it's best to avoid getting into, again, I could be wrong, when maybe I was kind of half listening, half just in the background. I think he did mention like it's probably not a good idea to get into a relationship with a Muslim if you're ex-Muslim, right? I do think that that it yeah, I do feel like it's also like good to see when there's, because this is one of the things that Mariam Namaz, or quite a few, when I did tell them that my wife's Muslim, and some of my two best mates are still Muslim, so, and they pray 5 times a day and everything. It's good to have more of that, to see that, oh yeah, things do and then again, so Mariam Nawaz, she told me that, oh, still, well, I won't go into that, but yeah, it's good to see that there still can be, relationships like this, even though they look really strange from someone looking the same way. I guess this wouldn't be like a Christian married to an atheist.
Yeah.
That doesn't. I mean, it doesn't strike. It doesn't. It's not odd, right? I guess there's loads of it. I guess I'd love to be in a position where maybe, again, I'm probably being far too optimistic, but maybe, 10, 20 years down the line, like this is just a normal thing. But yeah, I know I'm probably just being way too over optimistic. But
Yeah,
more of a normal thing.
it's hard to say. Maybe my personal feeling is maybe one day, but it's going to take a long time of like gradual change. But the change is happening, especially in the Western world, I think. And whenever I see people becoming even more religious, even more Muslim, especially amongst immigrants, I think it's a reaction to that. So you know what I mean, in the sense of when people see change happening, they resist and stick to the past even more. But that's part of the process of change. So, but yeah, again, who knows? I think I'm just slightly more optimistic than you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're definitely right. I think that's very much, I feel like the UK.
Mhm.
That's the other thing as well. There's so much difference in. I feel, again, I'm not that I've been in America, but I hear that the way Muslims are over there, they're a little bit more integrated than they are in the UK. I guess maybe Canada is a little bit more like the US, maybe.
A little bit in that sense, yeah. I think there's a bit more of an accepting nature of all sorts of different dynamics here in Canada, but at the same time, people are coming in with their prejudices and their dogmas to Canada as well. So I think again it will take time. And Arif, I have one question for you from the live chat,
Yeah.
and then I unfortunately do have to let you
No worries.
go.
I know you've got people in the
Yeah.
queue.
Let's see. So I am not your sister asks, do you feel like the cultural stuff, so the stuff that you're talking about that you really like, that's connected to Islam, is influenced by religion, or not really? So maybe the one tweak I would make to this question is, do you think those things could still exist and be completely separated from Islamic teachings?
No.
No, it's too hard, isn't it?
Simple no. So that, again, maybe I'm being a little bit delusional when I'm saying it, but yeah, it's almost impossible to, the analogy that I gave with this. We'd have to someone would have to invent, like, and it'd have to be like from, like, maybe, even though I don't like the guy, but MBS in Saudi, if he's somehow, if someone does something, a leader does something, like, oh, we the push has to if a push comes from a leader like MBS or whatever, and they try to push it to make it more secular, and again, even that plus a lot of time, I guess, maybe then, but yeah, at the moment it's yeah, I don't think so, but I do feel, to a certain extent, if there is like ex-Muslims within a family and Muslims in their family, I think it can, like, all my family is fine. Like, I never ever. I can easily just joke around with my family, even though they're all Muslim. They're quite. I would say they're fairly liberal. So I do feel
Mhm.
like it can exist in my family. It is a cultural thing. I feel in my family, but obviously that's it's a very very rare case. I feel the way it is in my family.
Yeah, I think you may be right about that. But yeah, change happens slowly and not evenly. Who knows, one day. But yeah, to say that it would be completely separated from Islam, I don't think, or mostly separated from Islam, I think that's going to be very, very difficult. But yeah, thank you so much again for coming on. It's really great to see you on camera as well. I hope to see you in future live streams too. I'm going to make more of an effort to do more of those. And yeah, uh, best wishes to you. And now that we both know that we're footy fans, maybe we can chat a little bit about that too. Who are you a fan of?
Real Madrid. I
Real
actually
Madrid.
I just went to see a game with my son a few weeks
Amazing.
back. So yeah, it was
Amazing. I haven't had the chance to see a Real Madrid game. I saw a Valencia one. And even though smaller stadium, less people, it was still an incredible atmosphere.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Mestalla, isn't it? The
Mestalla, yeah.
yeah.
Well, great,
Awesome.
great again to see you, Arif, and I'll let you go now.
Cool.
And yeah, to everyone watching, we met in celebrating Descent. I'm hoping to attend future ones. It would be very cool to meet you as well in a future celebrating Descent. I really enjoyed the atmosphere there, and again, I think it's really great to have those things in the real world. As General Skeptic, thank you for your donation. Says it's good to know ex-Muslims on the internet, but it's even better to meet each other in real life. Please do come to the Celebrating Dissent and others like it. It's so Amazing. So thank you for that, General Skeptic. All right, okay, I'll let you go, Arif,
All right,
and
cool.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, so I unfortunately, just for time's sake, have to stop the queue at this point, so no more call-ins, unfortunately. I've got four people in the queue right now. Grunkle, Stan, you're up next. Let me know in the private chat if you're ready to go. I'll also message you in the private chat in case. Okay, no, Grunkle Stan is ready. Okay, adding you right now. Okay. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. You're on live. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I am doing very, very well. I just feel kind of bad I couldn't talk to everyone a little bit longer. But yeah, that's the way sometimes these things go. It's really great to see so many people, and thank you so much for being patient because I think you've been on for a while, like waiting for your turn.
Yeah, I mean, of course, happy to be here.
Yeah, so Grunkle Stan, I love the name, even though I'm not sure what it means, but it
It's not,
rolls.
it's a reference.
It rolls off the tongue very well. So yeah, you were the one who I mixed you up. Sorry, with one of the previous callers. So you are the one who converted to Islam, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay. And so yeah, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about why you converted. Maybe tell me a bit about what it was that attracted to it, because I think you converted during Ramadan as well, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
so I converted during Ramadan of last year. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. It was like around March. I mean, okay, so if we're counting the time that I started researching and kind of practicing, then that was like January. But if we're counting the time that I actually said my Shahada, that is like late March. So, like, I don't know. I like to consider the time I was converted for maybe like 4 or 5 months-ish. So I wasn't in it for that long, but I was in it for long enough to like, I don't know, just kind of get immersed in that environment and kind of I don't know, like I my critical thinking skills really kind of kicked in and were like, no, don't do this. But essentially, I just kind of started researching. I think what motivated me, I mean, you probably heard this before, but just kind of like, I don't know, I admired like Palestinian resistance and kind of like, oh my God, like, they're still super religious or they still believe in God during this horrible thing that they're going through. And I was like, there must be something there, I don't know. And so I started researching Islam and I started going to the mosque at my college, and all the girls were super nice and like they really welcomed me in. Like you've probably heard the phrase like love bombing when
Yeah.
referring to kind of how people like,
Cults, that's how they work often, right?
yeah, yeah. Even though people don't really like to use the word cult because there's a lot of like connotations there, but just call it what it is. Anyway, it's just like, yeah, it just felt very overwhelming. I had never had that kind of attention before, so I was soaking it all in, and it felt really nice. And I kind of interpreted their kindness as sort of, oh, they're being kind to me because of Islam, because Islam teaches them to be like these super kind, charitable people that are really welcoming and supportive. And so, yeah, during Ramadan, I eventually worked up the courage to like to say my shahada, and then um I remember the day of, it was especially overwhelming because I remember about a week before just kind of saying to the girls, oh, I don't really want it to be this kind of big thing, maybe just like a couple people, small group, and just kind of say it, be done with it. But and I remember they were like reiterating that to me. They were like, "Oh yeah, you don't want that many people there, right?" And I'm like, yes, that is correct. But then by the time it got there, no, it was like everyone was there. Everyone and their mother was there. It was so, yeah, it was a lot of people, more than I was expecting. This like whole room full of women. And like, of course, like the guy on the other side that was like, speaking through the microphone, telling me what to say. I couldn't see him obviously because like the women's and men's sections are divided off, but um so I was just staring at a curtain with a microphone, just kind of repeating the words as all these
Wow.
women were like surrounding me. And I remember when I finished saying it, this like older woman came up to me and hugged me as if she'd known me my whole life. And I was like, I don't know you, but okay, this is fine, I guess. And then everyone just started coming up and hugging me, and there were people crying, and I was like, oh God, hold on. Like, this is weird, actually.
And like, did you happen to notice? For me, the thing that really stands out about Ramadan is that you really see how cohesive and connected Muslim communities seem to be from the outside, but also really are during that time period. Like, did that like appeal to you as well?
Yeah, like, everyone was especially connected. There was this sense of unity and community, kind of. Like, everyone is like, we're all in this together, we're all fasting together. Even though there was only, I remember there was only one day that I actually tried to fast the whole time, and that really sucked. So I kind of just like kept making excuses for myself where I was like, oh, well, okay, well, it's like the one week I was on my period, I could get off with that, but then I was like, "Oh, well, I have this like medication I have to take that I have to take with food and at like this specific hour, so like at like 9 a.m. or whatever, so I have to eat then." And just kind of like doing these mental gymnastics in my head to get around fasting because it sucked the one time I did it. It's like, how do y'all do this? I'm like, okay, maybe I can see if y'all are like drinking water while doing it because intermittent fasting has benefits and you
But
know
no water either.
no water. And I always found it so funny whenever I would see like those Ramadan TikToks where like Muslims would be mocking like non-Muslims that would be asking, not even water? Like, no, not even water. And they act like that's ridiculous for someone to ask that. Like, it's I don't know, maybe someone's concerned that you're getting dehydrated.
And then keep in mind that Islam originated in the middle of a desert where it's like
Mhm.
40, 50 degrees Celsius. So that's
Yeah,
also mind blowing about it too.
yeah, like it, and especially because there are time zones in which, daylight hours, I don't know, there's like 18 hours of daylight, so you're
Oh
fasting
yeah,
for 18
yeah,
hours,
yeah.
which is insanity.
So the other thing that you wanted to talk about was how your doubts kind of unfolded. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that too, because I think that's like such a common thing, whether you're someone who converted or someone who was born it and then left. You start discovering like these dark truths, right?
hmm Yeah, so after I kind of, left that day and all, I don't know, the magic or whatever you want to call it, the high I was on kind of wore off. I I started researching more, and once I kind of found out more and more things that Muslims weren't allowed to do, like I remember seeing a video pop up on my feed that was basically this Muslim woman talking about how she gave up music and how that was really hard for her. And I was like, music can't be haram, right? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh crap. And I was like, I'm trying to find every excuse in the book, but I mean, I know that there's divided opinions on it, but it's still one of those things that's like, I remember she said in the video something along the lines of like, I don't know, music blocks your heart from the Quran, something like that. So I don't know. And that was one of those things that was really hard for me to reconcile with because I love music. I've been playing instruments almost my whole life. So it's something that I've always found refuge in. And I don't know, it just felt really weird that I wasn't allowed to listen to music. And other things kept popping up, like, I don't know, you can be gay, you just can't act on it. And I mean, I'm bi, so that one stung. That one really stung. Like, I'm just supposed to give up all of these progressive ideas that I have about, people like me being allowed to exist and just live our lives and just, feel comfortable in our sexualities. And now I'm just supposed to believe that it's wrong. Like, I don't get it. And I tried to, once again, like, find every excuse in the book to be like, oh, well, that's not that different. Cause, like, I don't know, you're not allowed to have premarital sex even if you're straight. I don't know. Like, I don't know. There's like a very sex negative view in Islam that I didn't really like. And it just, yeah, like the purity culture and all of that stuff just really gave me the ick. And I specifically tried to get into like progressive Muslim spaces to, put myself in a bubble that was like, okay, so I want the good things about Islam, but I also want like to keep my progressive values. So I tried to follow like, I don't know, accounts like the Queer Muslim Project and Blair Imani, like, like queer Muslims that were proud with both of those identities that I was like, why can't that be every one of us? Well, because, we live in a Muslim majority country, we get killed. And that's not a not coincidence. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake that basically a majority of the countries that have laws saying that gay people have to be put to death are Muslim majority countries. Like that's no mistake, you know?
No, definitely not. No. That this is always the thing that sometimes like more moderate Muslims will say that it's connected more, those kinds of things are connected more to the culture and not to Islam. But then when you talk to a lot of Muslims and they'll reference things in the Quran or the Hadith. And so where did that leave you in terms of whether or not you wanted to still remain a Muslim?
I was I was kind of stuck. It just it was weird because it seemed like one thing would just come right after the other, and then it became harder to justify it. Like, and I don't know, things just seemed a little weird. Things seemed a little off. Like, one memory that comes to mind is one of my Muslim friends took me out to lunch because I believe it was Eid and she felt bad for me because I didn't have any Muslim family to spend it with. So she was like, I'll just take you out, little treat, whatever. And I remember we were talking and I don't know, I remember one of the things was weird because like I think one of the previous callers mentioned like all like the weird sunnahs, especially ones that are like, oh, don't eat with your left hand, don't do any of these things. And I remember I think one of the sunnahs is something like, I don't know, take 3 sips from your water at a time, something like that.
Oh, I didn't
And
know that one. Okay.
and I remember I did it just out of, just drinking water. I didn't know that was a thing. And then my friend goes, "Oh my God, you know the sunnah." And I was like, "What? I'm just drinking my water." I didn't know that was a thing. And it seemed like all we talked about the whole time was Islam. And I was like, this is tiring a little bit. And no, and oh, this is another thing. Knowing what I knew about Aisha and her marriage to Muhammad, I was at the point where I was trying to rationalize it in my head, the arguments that were like, no, she was 18, she wasn't 6, even though that's still weird. But I remember she was talking about, I think, I don't know, like one of the sisters meetings that I missed, she was like, oh, I don't know, Aisha used to do this with the prophet or whatever. Oh my God, such a cute couple. And in the back of my head, I was thinking, oh, but that's a child though. That's really weird. Like, what? I don't know. I don't, I'm just, oh, I don't know. It just grossed me out so much. And I was like, oh, do I really want to do this?
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, that's one of those things where it's kind of I'm kind of impressed that you even learned about that. Maybe it's just because there's more information out there. But when I was a Muslim, growing up in the Muslim world, I didn't even learn about Aisha's age being 6 until after I left Islam and started looking into what some of the criticisms of the religion were. So, yeah, that's a really mind-blowing one, and I can really see why that would shake a lot of people's face once they figure it out, because then you realize that this perfect prophet is someone who was a much older man and married a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's really weird, especially when people try and justify it with, oh, it was a different time, it was
classic. Yeah,
more morally acceptable back then, they didn't have age of consent laws or whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, so if Muhammad is supposed to be like a perfect man whose morals, you're supposed to be emulating throughout all times and all places, but this one thing that he did isn't up to par with, like, you know, today's morals are really, I mean, I'm pretty sure people back then still thought it was weird and still thought it was wrong. Like, just because it's more socially acceptable doesn't make it right, doesn't make it okay?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then like, and where do you stand? Where do you stand now with Islam? Like, what would you say to people about it today?
So yeah, I'm coming up on, like, I believe the 1 year anniversary of me taking my Shahada, because then I left around, like, I want to say, like, May-ish. So that was when I made up my mind that I was like, okay, I'm no longer Muslim. So I was like in and out. It was really quick. Which I guess I'm like happy about, because it didn't give me the opportunity to go down like the real strict like fundamentalist route that, a lot of converts seem to fall into. And I don't know. I yeah, I'm still like embarrassed that I converted, but I can understand why, because, once you're fed this like Disney version of Islam, that I like to call it, where they say, women have rights and you're hijab is empowering, and, Islam has all these scientific miracles. On the surface, that sounds great. And yeah, once you look into it, then it's not. And then at least I saved myself the trouble of having to take, like, I don't know, years to try and deconstruct, or, have doubts, which, I mean, yeah, I feel lucky about, but I also feel like, yeah, I got off easy because there are so many converts out there that have been in it for years and may put on a facade of, oh, my life is so much better, I'm so much happier, but you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what doubts they're having. So it's just, everyone's different. I feel like you don't really hear a lot of convert stories that often, especially ex-convert stories. Ex-convert stories are very rare to come across, I've found. So I just personally, I just like want to put my voice out there, because there's not enough people like me that have kind of had my experience of converting and then leaving, or at least not enough people that speak out about it, because I can guarantee you there are a lot more people that convert and leave than you hear about, because it's this weird phenomenon of, when someone converts, it's this big thing, everyone's excited about it. You're being hailed as like a basically like the token white girl of the mosque. And then a few
Yeah,
months later, it seems like you never hear from them again. They just kind of disappear. And, you know, and that's because a lot of them leave. A lot of us leave. And, after we realize this is not what I signed up for. Like, I didn't know this is what Islam was. I was kind of, I think I also converted because I was kind of on a journey to kind of, quote unquote, disprove the Western myths about Islam. Like, I wanted to be like, I wanted to prove all those people wrong and be like, see, Islam is this beautiful religion. And then I was like, oh, maybe they had a point there. But yeah, I still don't agree with a lot of Western criticisms of Islam because a lot of it does stem from like actual racism. And
Definitely.
I don't align myself with that. I don't want to come across somebody that, they're like, oh, I don't like Islam. And also because I don't like brown people. Like I don't I'm like scared I'm gonna have that kind of interaction. I'm like, oh, I'm not that person.
No, no, I think that's like the really tough line to kind of hold, even if you're someone who comes from, like me, comes from an Arab Muslim background. Of like, how do you criticize the religion without falling into what people will accuse of being racism or something like that?
Mhm.
Or just following, in my case, following the westernized indoctrination that I've experienced from living in a country like Canada. It's a really tough thing to try to balance out. But I think you're
Yeah.
you're doing it really well, and I think this comment in the live chat stuck with me because there's a stigma too, for sure, because being a convert is actually can be embarrassing because people assume you did it for a man, and the person who posted that is trying to get over that themselves. So there's always this assumption, like this negative assumption, if you converted or if you left after converting, and that's like a really tough thing too.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I personally, yeah, I guess inferring from context that I've shared, I never had that experience of converting for a man. I don't know, they always assume you do it for a man. And I don't know, it's like, I feel like beyond that, I don't know, like, I feel like Islam kind of messed with my perceptions of like relationships because you're not allowed to date in Islam. So I was like, okay, so wait, how am I supposed to actually get to know someone? Because I was like, I don't want to
Always
meet
the
someone.
mystery, right?
Yeah, I don't want to meet someone that's like, I don't want to meet someone, have the thought in my mind of, oh, I want to marry you, or maybe I could marry you, and then a few months down the line we get married. I'm like, I don't understand that. Like, I've been with my current boyfriend for about 3 months now. Nowhere is marriage in the cards. Like, we're both still like college kids. Like, that's not happening.
Exactly. And like my personal feeling, I've talked about this on my channel before, is when you're committing to someone for something like marriage and potentially having children, I think it's really important to know or understand if you're compatible sexually, because
Mhm.
that's one of those things where you can't just kind of hope for the best, because there could be all sorts of potential incompatibilities. Depends on the couple, whatever that couple is, and to not have any experience with each other sexually is, I think, a really difficult challenge if you do end up having those incompatibilities. So ever since I left, I've always been really focused on that as something that, we shouldn't be stigmatizing or just hiding ourselves from each other. We should be exploring those things so we can figure out what works for us and what doesn't.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I always wondered, like, of course, I have nothing against people that say that they're waiting for marriage because people can do whatever they
Sure,
want,
sure.
but it does kind of, I don't know. Of course, I know that that's not something I would want to do because I don't know. I just picture you go into it thinking it's gonna be this magical, wonderful experience, and then when it isn't, when it's like awkward because you both don't know what you're doing, then it's like, oh, I waited so long for this. This is like, and then you have to just kind of get used to like, you feel like you have to get used to, I guess, not enjoying yourself during sex because there is this kind of narrative that, sex is really only for the man's pleasure, you know,
Definitely.
disregarding
Yeah.
what the woman feels like. Like, yeah, the verse about wife beating, if your wife is, being disobedient, if she's refusing sex or whatever, then you can hit her or whatever. And I didn't even read that verse until like way after. So you can imagine my shock reading that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but yeah, like, oh, religion of peace, my ass. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just, oh my God.
Well, thank you so much, Grunkle Sen. I hate to end this now, but I do have to get to the other callers before I go. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. I think it's really admirable that you decided to share it, because I agree with you. It's really important to share it, not just to warn others who might be potentially wanting to convert, but just so we can all have a better understanding of why someone converts, and you know why they might end up leaving, because I think there's like a lot of misunderstanding about it, whether it's people thinking it was done for a man or whatever it is. It's
Hmm.
really good to know that.
Yes, thank you for having me on.
Oh, pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much again. All right, okay, I'm gonna jump now to Unhappy Substance. If you are there, Unhappy Substance, let me know if you're there in the private chat. Oh, Unhappy Substance, you're here. So I feel bad for this, but because I do have to go on another call right after this, I do have to keep the last couple calls to a couple minutes each. Sorry about that, and I appreciate your patience. So Unhappy Substance, you are on.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to hop on and kind of share my story. So, I come from West Africa, a majority Muslim country. We have like maybe 5% of Christian, and atheists are not even part of the that percentage. So, I was born and raised there. To be honest, they are very laid back when it comes to religion. They're more culturally Muslim. I grew up not seeing a lot of people praying. We had a like Islamic teacher that used to come to our house like every Sunday and Wednesday, I think, teaching us about the Hadith and Quran. And my dad would never like actually force us to pray or make us pray all together. So yeah, it wasn't really, like extremist Islam. So growing up, I started learning more about religion, and I was the first one in my family to actually like pray regularly every day. And everybody used to say, "Oh my gosh, she's so pious, she's so religious," and I felt some kind of fulfillment being that person. And I came to the U.S. 5 years ago for college. And when I came, because I came all by myself, my whole family was, well, my sister and my brother were in Canada, and it was just me here. My parents were still back home. I started watching a lot of Islamic things, and um, I kind of became really, really religious. I was the first one in my family to wear the hijab. Like, and it's funny because on my mom's side, she's from, I think her grandfather was from Iraq, and supposedly they are the descendant of the prophet. But they were not religious at all. They did not used to wear the hijab. They still don't wear the hijab. So I was the first one to wear the hijab. And I started becoming really religious, like not listening to music, not touching any men, like even handshake. Um, yeah, just well, that's not even extreme. That's just regular, I guess, Muslim. We follow the rules. Uh, and on my second year in college, I met someone who I guess we were interested in each other, but I told him clearly that we could not do anything because I was Muslim and he's not. So he took multiple Islamic classes um, at the university, and he was like, "This is what you believe in," and he's the one who kind of told me to learn more about my religion. Like every time he would ask me a question, I would not know what the answer would be, or he would tell me stuff about the religion that I didn't know. For example, that the prophet had concubines, and that was mind blowing to me. Like I could not believe it. Um, So I started learning more about my religion, and I that was in July. No, that was before July, and then by July, I did not believe in Islam at all anymore. So that was kind of my background. Yeah, let me let you talk because I've been talking for a while now.
Oh, no, no worries whatsoever. No, I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your background,
Mhm.
and it's really interesting to hear because even in this space online, there aren't many ex-Muslims from Africa.
Yes.
So I do think that that voice does need a representation too. I would really like to know more about what your experience is like as a closeted ex-Muslim
Hmm.
in the Ramadan today, and maybe you can tell me a little bit about. You also mentioned to the moderator that you see Islam as man-made, emphasis on
Yes.
the man. So,
Yes.
so yeah.
For as a closeted Muslim, luckily I don't live with my family. I live all by myself, and recently I have a roommate now, which happened to be from Senegal too, and we found out later on that we were actually cousins. So I try to not eat in front of her. I still hide when I eat. For example, I just snuck up some Thai tea in my room to drink. Um, yeah, I don't warm up any food in front of her because she's very like Senegalese people love to gossip, and I know if she knows that I don't fast, she will tell her mom, who'll tell my mom because family is related. So I always hide, or I just pretend to be on my period, but that can only last for a week max. Um, yeah, some little things like I have nail polish on my toes, and I always wear socks around her because I know she would ask me like, "Are you not praying right now?" So that's just some small little things. But other than that, to be honest, it's really easy because I don't have my family around. But I do want to say, when my parents came like 6 months ago to visit me, and they noticed that I was not religious anymore. I used to be extremely religious, like I said, compared to my siblings. And my mom noticed, and they kind of went into like a depressed mode, and they were like, "We're losing you, you're going to become a whole different person now." I didn't tell them that I was not Muslim anymore. I just told them that I was having doubts, and I asked them. They're the first person that I started asking questions about, like the prophet marrying a 6-year-old and all of that, and like the sex slaves and all that, and they just didn't have an answer. To be honest, they said, "Stop doubting, like this is just a shaitan talking to you. Don't think about it, like stop thinking about it." Pretty much that's what they said, and I was not satisfied. I don't like how gullible they are, and they're old. Like, you should be able to have critical thoughts. Sorry, English is not my first language, so
You're very good at English if English is not your
oh,
first language.
thank you so much. That's a good compliment. So yeah, about the man-made, I do not believe that this is from God at all. It's just it sounds so man-made. It's so misogynistic. It's extremely patriarchal, and I think it reflects the society that it came in. It came from. So men used to be like that in the 7th century in the desert. They used to think that women were inferior, and that's just what Islam is. They supposedly well, women now want to say that Islam gives so many rights to women, but I don't believe that. And in general, in Islam, women are definitely inferior. We're the majority of people in hell. If you disobey your husband, you pretty much are not a good woman. If there's a hadith of the Prophet saying that if there's anyone that can bow down to anyone, it would be a wife to her husband, which is insane to me. The fact that we are also just sexual objects because, for example, the 72 virgins in heaven, that's like mind blowing to me. Like, I just cannot believe it. um yeah, there are hadiths where we're compared to donkeys, and it's just crazy. Like, I cannot think that this comes from God, the same way that there are like a lot of mistakes in the Quran, like scientific mistakes or math mistakes, like no, what is inheritance? There is a pretty big math mistakes in
Oh, in the
like,
in the
yeah,
percentages. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the ratio
That
is
yeah.
27 uh over 24, which is over 100%, which makes literally no sense, but yeah, that when I saw that, I was like, clearly this is from a man, like this is from a human. And I do want to emphasize that when we're Muslims, we don't, nobody teaches us about the bad things about the prophet. Like we only know good things about the prophet. These, like the fact that he had slaves, the fact he had concubines, he killed people, he um he thought people to be, hostile for Christians or Jews. All those things, they would never teach us that. And when I was telling that my mom, she was just saying that it's really bad for me to be disrespectful to the prophet. So it's really hard to have a conversation with them because they are scared to even talk or like speak about what the prophet did. Yeah, so I'm very glad I'm out of this cult.
Well, thank you so much for sharing Unhappy Substance.
Of course.
Again, I would love to talk to you more, but I do have to get to the last couple of callers
It's
who've been
okay.
patiently waiting. You know what, everyone? This has been the most watched and call-in I've done since I started doing this 3 years ago. So I'm thinking we might have enough potential and interest to do a second call-in. So Unhappy Substance, to you and others watching as well. I think I might just do another one either next weekend or the one after. So I don't know if you would be interested in calling in again or not.
Of
Unhappy
course,
Substance.
I'd be very
Yeah,
happy.
just so we can talk a little bit more. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I might do that.
Hmm.
And what I'll do is Velvet Gold and Green, you're in the queue as well. I would love to talk to both of you, but I think if we do another call, and I'd be able to talk to you way longer. So if you can let me know in the private chat if you're willing to come in again and call in, just let me know. Velvet Gold and Green, if you're there. I'll give them a second to answer. So I'll also type it out to them. Oh, okay. So I think they're both in. Velvet Gold. Sorry you can't do next week, but maybe another one after that. So how about this? Green, you can call in on another date in Velvet Gold. I'll add you on now, but I can only talk to you for a couple of minutes, unfortunately. So Unhappy Substance, again, I would also love to speak with you again because I think again, it's really great to get the perspective from an ex-Muslim of an African background,
Of course.
because that definitely does not have enough representation.
I
If
agree.
you want as well, I think one of my moderators put my email in the live chat, but you can find it on my about page. You can reach me there, or you can DM me so we can maybe set something up to talk further.
Of course, sounds good. And
Yeah.
I did see a comment saying they speak French in Senegal. Yeah, French is my first language.
Oh,
I also
French is, yeah.
Wolof, and English is my third language. So yeah.
Wolof as well. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, you got this another compliment from
Oh,
Late
thank
Night
you.
Kaiju. English is not her first language. It's flawless. So there you
Thank you.
go.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on again on Happy Substance, and I hope we can connect
Thank you for having me.
again. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Pleasure is all mine.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care.
Take care.
All right, Velvet Gold. I'm gonna add you as the last one just because you can't make it for next week. Yeah, Hassan, it's becoming a popular watch while eating iftar. Yeah, I guess for the people in that time zone where it's about dinner time right now. And yeah, my email. Thank you, Gerwalk, for sharing my email. It's in the live chat if you want to find it, but it's also on my about page on YouTube. So, Velvet Gold, if you're ready to go, I'll add you on as the last caller, and I can have you on for a couple of minutes, and then I unfortunately would have to go. And Cherry, yeah, I would love to hear from Happy Substance some more as well. I think just like a very interesting, unique perspective. Okay, Velvet Gold is ready, and I'm adding you now.
Hello.
Hello, Velvet Gold. Thank you so much for being patient, and sorry that I'm adding you at the very end. But yeah, if
Oh,
you can't make it
not a
next weekend, I was hoping then just to speak for you with
yeah.
you for a couple minutes right now.
Yeah, no, not a problem at all. As I said, I'm just happy being screened. I was actually screened, and I get a chance to talk about this. Um, but yeah, I actually found your channel and this stream through through Apostle Aladdin. So
As many do, yeah.
yeah, to me, like I've heard the other apostates as well, but he kind of holds the gold standard for me because I like the way he's like so balanced and everything. And then I heard yours and his live streams or longer stream videos as well, and so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna follow him. I'm gonna listen to what he has to say. And then of course I found out that you're from Palestine, so I was like, that's it. I have been in on the side of the people from Palestine since 2014, because that's when I started learning about it, and and they were the reasons why I decided to step out of Islam. No, that it was part and parcel of the 100 million reasons why I decided to step away from it, because. Yeah, a lot of the claims that Islam makes about that Muslims being the chosen ummah, and then in Ramadan the Satan is chained and stuff, and nothing bad can happen to a Muslim if their taqwa is really really strong and if they fast really really hard. And I'm like, okay, so Allah pretty much played favorites with these with the prophets who decided to be the guardians of the Kaaba. But when it comes to Aqsa, its walls could be colored with the blood of the people, but no Ababil are coming ever. Um, and that got proven for the last 11 years over and over again. No Ababil were coming, no matter how much I prayed during Ramadan, after Ramadan, before Ramadan. That's pretty much the same thing, actually. Anyways, but yeah, so there was all of that. And then add to the fact that I was born in India, so a whole lot of people don't think I'm Muslim. Um, I'm I I'm gay, so a whole lot of people don't think I could be Muslim. Um, I've trained as a musician, as a singer specifically, so that's even worse. At least I could have left a physical instrument. I could have abandoned it, but my instrument is my vocal cords, and so what can I do? Um, I am a painter. That's my painting as my display picture. It's a self-portrait because I'm also a trained dancer. That's even worse for me. So I have got a whole lot of things going against me. Plus, I've seen a lot of, uh, I guess, in quote unquote Islamic domestic violence as part of my growing up. So there's
I'm
that.
sorry to hear that.
That's okay. I can laugh about it now because I was like, yeah, we were waiting for divine intervention, which is never coming. Ha 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 ha. But yeah. So yeah, it's like basically, and the screener had asked me if I've left Islam, and I was like, yeah, it's never really like a door, is it? Even if I religiously stop being Muslim, I'm probably going to be a cultural Muslim, in that if something good happens, I'll always say Alhamdulillah. And if I meet someone who has an Arabic name or a Muslim name, I'll probably end up saying Assalamu alaikum or Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and keep going after that. If I need to, if anyone dies, I'll instinctively I will say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. And stuff like that. So it's always going to be a part of me. I'm never going to be like, oh my glob, like Forrest Valkai does, but I'll still say Allah. um, but anyways, yeah. So that's pretty much. And this is crazy because you're the first person I'm actually talking to openly about the fact that I am like not associating with the greater Islamic identity. Oh my God, I should probably patent that. Sorry. Um, but yeah, I mean, for several years, I tried to, talk myself out of being gay. That didn't happen. Um, the first guy I had a relationship with. Oh, by the way, I grew up in Qatar. So the first guy I had a relationship with ended up marrying a female clone of me. Ha ha ha. So there's that. Um, but anyways, so that's anyways. Sorry, I've been going on and on, and
No,
I tend
no.
to do that. And yeah, my conversations are very rarely ever tethered. They're all over the place. But go on. Sorry, you have something to say.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you just to cap things off, and thank you for sharing your background as well. So I think the line broke out a bit. So you grew up in Qatar.
Yes.
Yeah. So the one thing I was curious to know about, just because it is Ramadan now, and I think it might be a fitting end, but with everything that you went through, and how much it was, like a challenge to like the authenticity of your identity. Like, how do you go through Ramadan now? Like, what is it to you today?
It's a it's an emotional roller coaster. I have the luxury and privilege of being able to live on my own. And I've lived in this apartment building for the last 11 years, and exactly three households know me, and we meet each other like 3 times a year. Anyways, but yeah, every other weekend I visit my mom, so I have to pretend to be fasting around her, because she's too old to learn anything new or try critical thinking, and so I want to support her in her fasting. She insists that her gay child lead the prayers at home, and so I do. I've she in any in those times that she is unable to make it to the mosque for whatever reason, she calls me, and I do like a very quick and abbreviated version of the khutbah, so that she has something to listen to before she can do her Friday prayer, because I had been in that situation, right? Like, I used to lead prayers at work. I used to do
Oh
the
wow.
Friday. Yeah, I used to be a unofficially appointed for Friday Khatib. I used to, and the one time I raised a point about being unified as an ummah, which means including Ahmadiyyas and Ismailis. I got a immense amount of backlash because of that, and people started campaigning to have me removed as khatib. That didn't happen. Anyways, but again, these were people who couldn't even say the Adhan fully, so I was like, oh, munafiqat is probably the eighth pillar of Islam, whatever happens to be the seventh one according to apostate Aladdin. But yeah, um, yeah, so Ramadan, I think, yeah, even in the past, when we used to have these summer Ramadans, like July and August, where we had 17, 18-hour fasts, I used to keep up with my music lessons. I used to keep up with my dance rehearsals. I would be exhausted. I would have migraines, but I would keep it up. But now, with these 12-hour fasts, I'm like, I'm no longer interested in doing this. So most of them I can actually keep. I can actually just proceed as normal.
That's really great to hear. I think that's the most important thing, that we find a way in which we can stay true to ourselves and
Mhm.
proceed as normal, which isn't the easiest thing to do. And by the way, I love the painting. You got some compliments on it
Oh,
too
thank you very
in,
much.
in the
Thank
in the
you.
live chat. And Gerwalk says, "Oh, wrong one. Please come back to talk more Velvet Gold." So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I would
Or
I also would love to have you on again on the channel.
for sure.
You're very well spoken too.
Oh, thank
So
you.
yeah. Thank you so much for being patient, and for being the last caller. Uh, I'm really happy to see how popular this call-in was. We've got almost 60 people watching right now. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
These are essentially the blessings of Ramadan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just want to say, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Wherever you are in the world, you are not alone. If you're an ex-Muslim going through a tough time this Ramadan, there's a whole bunch of us, like me, like Velvet Gold, like so many other people, watching and commenting and calling in. And as long as we can truly live to be ourselves, I think that's the goal that we should all be aspiring to. And I just want to recap the results of the poll question. It's in the live chat. Is Ramadan a positive force in the world? I probably should have put a maybe option as well for people. I just put yes and no. So 83% voted no, 17% yes. So I don't think Ramadan is all bad. There's a lot of good things that we can take from it. It's just the problem is the underpinning, as Vavagold explained so well, is unfortunately rotten. And so it does taint everything in that sense. So my hope is that we can have one day some kind of variation of the Ramadan teachings, or maybe just the Eid celebration without Islam being connected to it. But we're a long, long way away from that. So yeah, again, thank you for everyone for tuning in. You can support what I'm doing on Patreon and PayPal. The links for those are in the video description below. And until the next call-in, I'll aim to do that next weekend. I hope everyone has a good Ramadan. Thank you again to everyone for tuning in. And yeah, stay safe, everyone. And I hope you can be your true self wherever you are. And again, that final reminder, you are not alone. Okay, talk to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.